tune. Let's look at the third phrase now. So again, a similar phrase. This one starts on the tonic or keynote and ends on the tonic, and so aside from the strength of being similar to the other phrases, it starts and ends on the strongest note of the scale. This serves to kind of resolve the tension of the earlier phrases. This is a recurring theme in music, of course, this idea of tension and resolution. So this phrase, quite simple, starts off with a tonic. Now those two notes there are the second and the third. We get the second from the bent form of the third, and then it goes down to the sixth, which is a blow note below the tonic. So that's the whole phrase. Now, normally I finish a phrase on, if I'm going to use the tonic, I use the draw form of it, because it has a warmer feel to it with the vibrato. The blow vibrato, the way I do it anyway, is not as pronounced. And so I tend to use the blow form of the tonic, which is on hole 3, blow, in the middle of phrases, but if I'm ending a phrase I tend to use the hole 2 draw. So you'll often hear me go, switch from one to the other, because it's that second one that gives the warmth. Alright, so that's the whole melody now in its parts, and let's play that whole melody again. This time I've played those phrases a little differently. I've added a couple of things. First of all, ornaments, which are little embellishments which help to create an air of confidence in your playing. They might be little runs or little overlaps with adjacent notes. And as I say, they can create an air of confidence, but if you overdo them, they can border on arrogance, in the sense that if they're overdone, all the listener hears is the ornaments, and it wouldn't matter what tune you were playing. The character of the tune becomes lost, and all the listener hears is the actual ornaments themselves. So something that you can add in moderation to just give that little professional touch, but not to be overdone. Now the other thing I've added is exploitation of the blues notes, which is very suitable, or very suited to this kind of harmonica, cross-key harmonica. That is the lowered third, the lowered fifth and the lowered seventh. Now, as a blues nut, any material I play I'm going to try and bluesify as much as possible. And for example, if we take the first phrase, and I played it perfectly straight, the opening phrase to the head, which is really nothing, but by giving the warmth of vibrato and exploiting the lowered fifth, I can give it much more character and emotion. So the fourth is really not accented evenly. The lowered fifth is introduced, and that takes the accent and overall creates that feeling of emotion. Similarly in the second phrase, so you can hear there that I have to go down from the major third to the second, and the instrument is such that I can go down continuously through the blue third, and by hovering around that blue third I again create that bluesy emotion. So those are little extra things to think about when you're playing a melody. So that's the head of the tune. Let's look at the bridge now. Okay, I'm not going to discuss the bridge in anything like the detail I did for the first part of the tune, for two reasons really. Partly because I'm sure you've got the idea now that once you've got the correct harmonica, a B flat harmonica playing an F, that really after that picking up the melody is just a matter of trial and error. But the second reason is that I'm a bit more innovative in the bridge, and I stray a wee bit away from the conventional singer's lines in the bridge. You might want to check out YouTube or Google to find out what singers do in the bridge in Blue Moon. The eventual outcome is controlled really by the chords, so what I do is consistent with the chords, but it is a wee bit different. Right, essentially there are four phrases here. First phrase, and the first thing you notice is that it contrasts quite a bit with the phrases in the first part of the tune, the head, and this is the function of the bridge, to provide contrast, to maintain interest in the song. So it is a little bit different. The second phrase, now that's very similar to the first phrase, so we have these considerations of symmetry and balance which we find aesthetically pleasing, that I mentioned in part one. The ending is a little bit different, and that ending heightens the tension. The third phrase, now that's the phrase that has the most tension and leads into the fourth and final phrase, or something like that. And that phrase resolves the tension to some extent before completing the cycle and going back to, and so on. So you notice that the last note of the bridge is the fifth. It's on chord 5, so it's not fully resolved. And when you come into the moon part of the head again, it switches to chord 1, and that fully resolves the tension of the bridge. So you can pick out those melodies, those phrases yourself, and that completes the whole tune. So, rolling up your screen now is a list of mainly old-time jazz tunes suited to this style of cross-key or second position harmonica playing. I've played all these. You might have to sub a note for one that's missing, but generally you don't need overblows or overdraws. For the most part you can manage without them, although of course they would increase your versatility. The closer the song is to the blues though, the fewer extra notes you need, and as blues players this is probably going to be the kind of tune that's going to appeal anyway. So check these songs out using Google or on YouTube. Get an idea of their melodies and have a go. Now just before we leave Blue Moon, I'd like to make a few extra comments. You might ask, why am I talking about such things as tension and how one phrase relates to another? Well, think how you learn a tune. A tune has hundreds of notes. We don't, when we're learning the tune, treat each note as an individual piece of the tune. We actually group the notes into blocks of notes, and of course each block is a phrase, and each phrase has its own set of characteristics, its own place in the tune and its own function. For example, if the tension is increasing at a particular point in the tune, you're going to play it more forcefully with a little more urgency. So by understanding the tune, we don't just get the note sequence, we actually get the expression as well. I mean, if you didn't want to play the tune with expression, you might as well get a computer to play the melody. The harmonica is a very expressive instrument, so you might as well exploit that to make the tune actually mean something. to give it your own stamp, your own interpretation, and make it a little different to other versions so that you're contributing something new to the world. Finally, I did promise to provide a backing track in part 1, which I haven't done in this part. It'll be a top priority in part 3.